Schumacher, and of course Ayrton Senna, the winner of that first ever race. But this year, Lando Norris comes in, without a doubt, as one of the favourites for this weekend. He's going to have some stiff competition, not just the drivers he's up against, but the mighty Macau circuit. He was 11th last year, and he wants to go with this Carlin team and his teammate, Jehan Daruvala, in the rather resplendent-looking Volkswagen painted Sahara Force India colours. And he is a junior Sahara Force India. He was picked out of a competition, this Jehan, which they ran in India, and it was like 1 in a million type thing, and he won.
That's amazing.
Yeah, good story. And good guy. And everybody, of course, has got a story, but no better than Carlin. They've had such a splendid history, Trevor and his team. Ferdinand Habsburg, the Austrian, part of this team, joining Carlin this year, and looks as though he'll race again in the FIA Formula 3 Championship. In fact, I can confirm that. He's also doing Daytona in January, as is Lando Norris. I'm not sure about Daniel Tickton. His winter is as busy, but he had a good first session. And alongside me, Jonathan Green, Alan Hyde. And your thoughts, perhaps, looking at the first session, anything to report back in terms of surprises, or not?
That's a very good question. What we learnt from the first session was that the names that maybe we expected to be at the front of the field were instantly there.
Yeah.
It wasn't as if it took them 2 laps, 3 laps to get there. They were there consistently throughout the session, and that was only a free practice session. I think we were just seeing Dan Tickton there waiting back a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's a smart move, and you know, one team that know exactly what to do. And you've got to remember, there's a big battle between the teams here and a massive experience. And in fact, the teams can be the difference between winning or losing this particular Grand Prix, because they have the experience, they know how practice runs. You do your bit, we'll do ours. And staying out and waiting in the pit lane for the traffic to die down a little bit before you go out, not a bad move. Wait till they all get to the top of the hill at about the Solitude S's, which is coming up in about 10 seconds from now, and then send your driver out. You should have a good clean lap. But of course, that's the theory, because somebody could just throw it straight to the wall. And
first time we've seen a qualifying session here at Macau for the 64th Macau Grand Prix. Johnny, always an exciting time when, first of all, they've been working hard all morning, and for the first part of the afternoon. We've had free practice sessions, but it moves into a different gear, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Everything's got that much more
nice juice of words
immediacy
the
about
gear
it.
takes on another gear.
It does. And we've now got the immediacy of qualifying, because this very much could set up a nice weekend in Macau for any one of these young drivers. Lando Norris, you mentioned, is going to Daytona alongside Fernando Alonso.
Yeah, I've heard of him. What an experience. And it's interesting, Fernando was interviewed and he said, look, I'm not there to teach Lando anything, but you know, I'm using any time with him to nurture and, you know, whatever I can do. And there's no better guy to learn from than someone like Fernando, who has no ego when it comes to bringing on. I mean, they are so worlds apart when it comes to what Fernando's done in his career and where Lando is in his. He turned 18 on Monday, did Lando Norris, so he is just a whippersnapper, but a fast one. We'll take a look at Ferdinand Habsburg.
It was a superb tweet by Fernando Alonso. I was looking for it. Alongside the photograph of himself and the 2 young drivers that he'll be driving against, he said in his tweet, I guess I'll need to shave for January.
Yes, he'll look a bit out of place otherwise.
Yeah.
Who's his other teammate then?
Phil Hansen.
Okay. Well, this man, Habsburg, is also taking part in Daytona. I saw him yesterday. And yeah, it's becoming, it always has been a very prestigious event, but there's a lot more now drivers, especially with the emergence of young drivers doing GT racing, and the likes of Pippo Durrani, who raced here, have made a huge career out of kind of going the other way and giving up single-seaters early to take part in sports car racing and GT racing. A lot of the futures now. While Formula One is still very much the goal of most of these youngsters, we've seen the reality of it. There are only so many jobs in Formula One. So these days, the presumptions of these young drivers is more about becoming a professional and having a job. And Formula One, yes, they'd all love to race Formula One. Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't want to be the star of a Broadway show? But there's a lot of actors who don't get the chance. So it's a similar scenario in that I think there's a reality check that has changed since back in the 80s, where Ayrton Senna moved straight on to Formula One, as did Jenson Button. You know, the stories, as did Damon Hill. You know, it is still a springboard, but it isn't necessarily a launching pad to get into Formula One. That said, you get noticed at Macau, you do well in this 4 days, and your career could be very different. I'll never forget back in '93 talking to Jörg Müller, who was almost downhearted after the race, even though he'd won it, because he didn't know what his future held. And I know what the future holds for this man. It's a long walk, because it's over for this practice. And that's what I'm talking about at Macau. Just when you're getting into your rhythm, just when you're getting into some laps, suddenly, boom. And that will bring out, it may not be a red flag, but because there is a crane right there at the bottom of San Francisco Hill. But that car is no longer going to be part of this session for sure.
And on that first flying lap, yeah, it wasn't surprising that Callum Ilott went to the top of the times. He was purple in the middle sector, went purple in the final sector as well. And he's the first car to pop it on top of the times. That's not going anywhere, is it?
No, it's not. And I think it's
in gear still.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's I think it's Komita again, who was involved in the first incident.
Yui Sekiguchi goes to the top of the times, a 2:16.781.
Got a lot of experience here, Sekiguchi. I wouldn't say he's going to be one of the favourites necessarily, but he should be a factor. Callum Ilott, 2:17.2. The time's dropping dramatically. Red flag. So that puts an end to that. But that's Macau, folks. And if you're tuning in for the first time, this is pretty much normal fare. One flying lap. That's all they got. Every second on track counts, doesn't it? But I'll tell you what, if I'm Trevor Carlin right now, I'm probably going, good, right, I can talk to my driver now and, you know, have a discussion about what we want to do. And I say Trevor Carlin, but he is a master at this kind of situation and has seen it all before. And, yeah, I mean, it's not the situation you want. And it is, isn't it? It's 23. I think it is. I think it's Rui Komita, the oldest driver. Dragon, as he's called. Rather lost his fire.
I'm afraid so, yeah. And he's known just as Dragon for so many of the races that he takes part in.
So red flag out in our first session. And not a surprise that somebody's hit the wall. But like I said, this also is an opportunity, if you look at it another way, to go back. And certainly for the guys who are trying Macau for the first time or don't have the experience, and I'm thinking of the likes of Ralph Aaron and Mick Schumacher, an opportunity to get some real verbal amongst the engineers, because you haven't got time in the car, and it is Rui Komita in the Dallara Volkswagen number 23, the Japanese entry, the national N champion of Formula 3 in Japan. Rather inauspiciously crashing for the second time today.
Yep, that's not good news at all, and it's been a fairly tricky recovery by the officials, the marshals on duty down there. It's been a bit of an obstinate car to get moving, but
Guan Yu Zhou of China, the Ferrari Academy man, racing for Theodore Racing, of course, the famous Teddy Yip team of old. And I say of old, but Teddy, of course, was around during the 70s and 80s, and his parties at his house on the hill were legendary after the race, and his team was pretty much legendary in those famous red and white colours, which only came back the last few years ago. And but it's a storied history, and I'm sure they're delighted to have this man, Mick Schumacher, following in the footsteps of father and uncle here at Macau. Both winners. No pressure then.
An awful lot of pressure, but I reckon he's probably known that.
He's lived his life with pressure, and everybody, of course, makes those assumptions that if you're the son of Michael Schumacher, and we wish he and the family well, as all do motor racing, still not recovering from that tragic skiing accident, and somewhat ironic, really. Kenta Yamashita, also in a Dallara Volkswagen. Hard to say, do you have I mean, if you were to pick a car in terms of preference of engine this year, Mercedes, Volkswagen, it's hard to pick. There's always one really that kind of shines, but you know, the combination, they're all Dallara chassis, but you've got Toyota, we've got a Dallara Tomei engine. That was what I think the 3-Bon Racing team have got in their car. And then you've got Dallara Volkswagens. Mercedes always goes well here. Here's Maximilian Günther. And don't count out this man. Günther's could be one of the favourites here this weekend. And I was saying, Lando Norris may have won the championship, but there's quite a few drivers who kind of want a footnote on this year, because it has been an extremely competitive FIA Formula 3 championship this year. And there's several drivers who just kind of want to knock this man off his perch. He's got the golden ticket. He's going to McLaren. He's going to be the test driver. He's got a whole brand new era ahead of him with Renault engines and the possibility of driving with the very best, and a whole new era for McLaren. But there's a few that want to make their name here this weekend and kind of take the shine off what Norris has achieved.
And Lando Norris has yet to complete a lap in this qualifying session. Only one flying lap was completed by most of them out there, but he's one of those that has completed no laps. I
did do a long ramble about how tactically it was brilliant that they waited and all the rest of it, but of course...
these... unfortunately...
I think Mice Men and Greatest Plans comes to mind.
Tactics don't always work according to plan. I wonder what they're going to do now.
Pedro Piquet in the number 26, getting ready to go out.
For those that did go out, there was opportunity there to make adjustments to tyre pressures, and that's significant as well.
I think, like I said, in some ways, if I were starting out as a you know, a debut racer at Macau, I would have thought this respite of a few minutes to just take a deep breath, come in and, you know, kind of shake your head a little bit and go, right, okay, right, we're in qualifying now, and I don't like this, I do like that, take a little bit of pressure out here, you know, and just thinking time, really, because the maelstrom of being in a qualifying session here at Macau, it's probably quite a shock to the system.
Yeah, we saw a number of predictable names at the top of the times in the first free practice session. One was Sergio Santacamera.
Yep.
He didn't put in a lap during that first start to this qualifying session. Daniel Ticktum didn't put in a fastest lap, a flying lap. So he's another one that was right up at the top of the times during free practice.
Tsuboi of Japan, and Japanese entries, of course. It's interesting, Japan, of course, being such an insular place when it comes to motor racing, and yet such an important place on the world globe of motor racing, have always had a huge tradition of coming here. Tom's Toyota especially, sometimes bringing in the odd ringer, like a Peter Dumbrek, to come in and race for Toms who wouldn't necessarily have been racing in the Japanese Formula 3 Championship, but the Japanese Formula 3 Championship has grown over the years and become more and more competitive as well. But there's always a strong contingent, and it's a very important race to the Japanese. They have Fuji TV here, and it's always been a big race on the calendar for the Japanese entries, and we have a good, strong field again this year. You were mentioning just how good the British contingent is this year, and it is, but it always seems to be a strong contingent of racers.
Yeah, exciting time for British motorsport fans because we've got a very, very talented crop of young British drivers. One of them who will be showcasing his talent here.
All right, sit back, Alan. This is what you love more than anything. Let's hang out with Lando for a lap as he goes through Reservoir Bend and heads towards one of the fastest and most frightening, in my words, corners in the world. Here he is, down towards Mandarin. He takes a nice wide, high look and exit through there, nice and smooth. Now, the important braking down to Lisboa, scrubbing off all the speed and down into this funnel-like corner that is Lisboa. Nice and smooth again by Lando. And now he starts the climb up the hill and through the gearbox. Lando came here last year, learned the circuit well, had to bounce back from recovery. Ooh, he had to make a few adjustments there as he dives into the all-wall section now. Narain Karthikeyan going off there in the race all those years ago. Takuma Sato raced brilliantly here back in his day. So many great names. And now Lando Norris trying to add his. Now the Solitude S's and down towards Policeman's. Wonderful onboard shots. Now it gets tricky down the hill, braking downhill and then uphill into this section. Very tight indeed. Up through the gearbox, down to second gear here again. On the run towards Donna Maria now. Nice and smooth by Lando so far. A little bit of oversteer here and there, but nothing to write home about. Into Melco, tightest corner in motor racing. And then opening it up again towards Fisherman, and this is where the lap can be made or broke. Lando coming into the sunshine now towards Fisherman's, and look at this corner. Line on the entry and flat out on the exit, going very close to the wall indeed. And then the final corner here, our bend. And a pretty handy lap by Lando Norris. That is how you race at Macau. And a great lap from Lando Norris. A 2:15.9, but interestingly enough, not as quick as Ferdinand Habsburg, but a pretty handy lap all the same. Great to be on board with him.
Yeah, Habsburg was following through and had gone overall best in the middle sector, the very long and significant middle sector. That was... for Lando, as he falls now down the times, just the first flying lap that we've seen from Lando Norris. We've yet to see a second flying lap for Daniel Ticktum. He is currently, after that lap, 2:14.929. He's second, so Daniel Ticktum on his first flying lap has gone second. Habsburg is top of the times. Gunter is third. Sete Camera was briefly fourth, but the times shuffle around now after this restart, so everybody completing now a flying lap after the restart.
Well, of course, I think the other thing is, I think the wake-up call is the possibility of a red flag or another caution, and it's now a case of markers. People want to put out a lap just in case somebody else throws it into the wall, because if you haven't got a lap in by then, and a few people were caught out, that's why Lando went straight out and put in that quick one. And yeah, I think everybody's now just putting in a banker, so to speak.
Callum Ilott, who impressed last year here at Macau, and impressed at the very start of this qualifying session. He was right up there. He's now down in 8th, but he was one that held back. He held back on the restart, so he was still in pit lane. So he may well have played a good move here. Did what Lando Norris did when the session first got underway. And
we've just been told debris on the track, and that's not good news for anybody attempting a fast lap now. And where is that?
Well, if that's the yellow flag that we're talking about, that's on the run down towards Mandarin.
Which can be a good thing and a bad thing. Another crash. This is exactly what we're talking about. Looks as though suspension damage, or at least tyre damage. Yeah, it is. Right rear suspension damage. He's hit the wall, and that will, again, no crane there. They're going to have to push him off. And that's Alex Palau, the Japanese entry, the Spaniard who races in Japan. So the first
red
Yeah, red flag. I'm not surprised by that. There's no crane there.
What was that you were saying about putting in the banker lap?
Yeah, well, Maximilian Gunter, funnily enough, just as we were looking and waiting for the red flag to come out, just got in that lap on his 5th attempt and does a 2:14.3, and that could be hugely significant, given that I think we're going to now start to see a rather intense end to this session. And again, here's another look at the crash. He was, well, what was he doing there? He didn't even attempt to turn there. He was way out of sync, so to speak. So the Spanish fly, quite literally.
And the other problem about this, and we see it so many times here in this qualifying session, no one gets the chance to get into a groove.
And this is why I think we revere this race and the drivers in it, because it really is the cool-headed guys that can raise above this. Now, I mean, you and I, and I'm putting you in the same vein as me, would be panicking now, going, hang on a minute, there's another track, there's another accident, and what am I doing, and what have I got to change? The cool guys it just rolls off them.
It is exactly what happens. It's totally predictable, and it happens year after year, so you can plan for the unexpected.
And there is the forlorn look of a racing driver who got it wrong.
Oh dear.
Yep, disappointment. And the realization that that's the end of qualifying 1, and whatever you've done or have not done, that's it. And that is bad news for Alex, who is currently in 15th and will not improve on that. Marino Sato of SMR checks out. See, this is what I'm saying. This is where the work is done, because you can look at the data, you can look at where you're fast or slow, and compare to your teammates and so on and so forth. So in a weird way, these stops in the action do help some drivers. Probably some not helped at all by it, but others just maybe, especially if things aren't going well, car doesn't feel right, you're just not comfortable. One thing that can be adjusted quite significantly at this stage is to say, okay, take some downforce off. We're not fast enough. Look at our top speed.
Like you were saying, always a compromise on setup.
It is, yeah. But if you're comfortable in the hill section and you know you can push a little harder, thinking maybe of someone like Callum Ilott, who we're looking at right now. Fantastic shot of him. But, you know, he's currently 11th. He's now looking at Gunter in first place with a 2:14.3 and thinking, hang on a minute, that's 3 seconds faster than me. What have I got to do here to change that? Now, he may say to himself, all right, well, I wasn't pushing on that one, and I, was just getting, like you say, no one's really had a chance to get into the rhythm yet. And this is going to be a relatively long delay for those with the adrenaline pumping and sitting in there. That's, I also think, is the hard thing for any driver, is to sit there quietly while there's no change to the atmosphere, because effectively, mentally, you're still going at 160, 70 miles an hour right now.
Not really yet had a chance to see what the car we were just looking at, Sergio Sette Camera, not really had a chance to see what he's going to do in this qualifying session. And once again, the clock has stopped. So although it may feel as if we're well into this session, we're not. We've only scratched the surface of it, because we've got 26 minutes remaining.
And here's another side of qualifying. Notice on the left-hand side, 2 brand new tyres. On the right-hand side, 2 scrubbed-in tyres.
Yep.
They have an allotment of tyres per race weekend, and they have to choose them very wisely indeed, because you really want to keep a set, certainly for the races, a clean set, for the start at least of the Grand Prix, and the qualification race, which will decide your position for the main race. But also, given the number of corners at this racetrack, you also can think quite carefully. For example, Alex Palau will not be able to use those tyres probably, because he's taken taken one rear off completely. It's things like that make, sorts out the men's from the boys, as it were. The teams themselves, all used to this. They've been running guys here for years, so they kind of go on autopilot. to the drivers when it comes to tactics at Macau. The engineers know best. Some drivers may, you know, take a personal preference with a bit of experience, someone like Callum Ilott here. But this is where the work of Macau really starts. I enjoy these sessions where you've got a little bit of downtime and there's a little bit of rethinking going on. So, George Monroe bellows out. That's 1.5 minutes. Every driver and most of Hong Kong probably heard that. So we now know that less than a minute to go. So any last minute thoughts that Jahan Darubala might have? And he's the number man that is making his debut here. Big weekend for him, and I remember talking to him about Macau, and he was really looking forward to the opportunity when I saw him back in, January, February, back in New Zealand. Had a great run there. Didn't win the championship. That went to Thomas Randall, the Australian. I'd like to have seen him here. He would love it here. Now doing sports car racing. Good crowd here for a Thursday, that's for sure. So we'll be away again in 30 seconds for effectively a 26-minute sprint. And at the moment, it's the German, Maximilian Günther, that leads the way with a 2:14.3. And I expect times to drop down to at least 2:12, possibly 2:11. That's getting really quick. And usually second qualifying is where you see some real outrageous times. But I think they will drop significantly, given that most drivers got in no more than 3 or 4 laps. And again, tactics come into play. Some drivers choosing to go straight out, some drivers just holding back and saying, okay, I need a bit of free time. There's the Carlin team just measuring when to go out. Out goes the number 6 of Devlin Di Francesco. So we're underway. Down towards the Lisboa again. And a few tyre changes. And a few on scrub tyres. The tyres themselves generally last the full weekend. Performance here at Macau depends, doesn't it?
It's really pushing them on now because we've got very warm conditions. It's been full sunshine now for probably 3 hours, 3.5 hours here at Macau. So the track temperature has really climbed.
To be fair, compared to some Macau weekends, we've had very little incident in day one, and usually day one is kind of the time where the madness starts, because everybody kind of anticipates the week and then goes out hell-bent for leather, sometimes a little over-exuberant, but we haven't had that today. And so therefore there's been fairly few incidents except for the Dragon King.
Lando is really pushing on straight away.
Yep.
It's got clear track, which is a big advantage.
Well, you know that Lando has to be thinking that, you know, he's here for one reason only. I mean, if he doesn't win, it's going to be disappointment. And I know that's tough, but he's had such a sensational year. That and a career move that has pretty much settled his career for the rest of his world. I remember when Max Verstappen came here, and he already had his Formula One deal in his back pocket, and I kind of said to him, why would you come here? And he goes, because it's Macau. And I think Lando feels the same way. I mean, he came here last year, he learnt his way round, and he's here now as expected winner.
This is going to be a committed lap, I reckon.
I think we are.
Here we go. And by the way, we've also yet to see a significant lap by Joel Eriksson, who was first or second for the majority of free practice this morning.
Really impressed with Sasha Van Astras. He's making his debut here. He's currently in the pits and just waiting, but he was 4th quickest after the first part of that qualifying session, and that's not bad for a guy who's never been here.
But now let's watch this commitment of this lap turning into Lisboa up towards San Francisco for Lando Norris on track on his own.
He's on it, isn't he?
He really is pushing on. This has got to be a committed lap, and an inch perfect lap as well. He's got that clear track in front and behind as well. Now this is the real test, as the wall beckons. It tightens and ever tightens on this middle sector. Lando didn't even put in a personal best on that first sector, 24.705.
Man who hails from Bristol, not far from where Jenson Button grew up. He's had a star-studded career to date, winning every series he's been in, including being the current FIA Formula 3 champion of 2017. But Macau is the footnote that he wants, down towards Melco. And the 3 times you see on the board there, Habsburg, Norris and Arubala, giving you a nice look at each of them in comparison. 147.2, 147.3, Habsburg, 147.6, very close indeed.
Personal best middle sector for Lando Norris, 122.535, not an overall best, but certainly a personal best.
So, Norris trying to improve on his 2:15.5. He comes out of the last corner now, and across the line comes Lando Norris.
Goes second.
And goes second quickest with a 14.6. Much better by the Brit. Habsburg, does he improve? 2:14.6 himself. Very close indeed at the moment. And the top 4 men all under 2:15 at the moment. And I expect those times to drop even further.
Yet to see the best in this qualifying session from Sergio Sette Camara and Joel Eriksson as well, languishing down there in 18th place at the moment.
Yeah, no prizes for when you go fast, and yeah, like I said, it's a tactical thing, but keeping one's powder dry is a dodgy game at Macau, the gambling capital of the world, because it is a gamble. If another red flag comes out, you could lose that opportunity to set your fastest lap. That's why Norris and Gunter have gone for it, but conditions will improve.
Sergio Sette Camara, overall best in the middle sector. We wonder when it was going to come.
Here
I
it
think
is.
It's coming now.
Okay, watch out for the number 19.
Number 19 is Sergio Sette Camara, waiting for him to complete the final sector on this, which is going to be a significant lap.
Here he comes.
Goes top.
And there it is, 2:14.024. Still no one breaking into the 2:13s. And Joel Eriksson also sets in a marker in the number 15. Eriksson with a 2:14.226. Now we're starting to roll it up here at the 64th Macau Grand Prix. Alan Hyde and Jonathan Green excited to bring you the action here of this splendid race in perfect conditions. And this only the first session, as we take a look at the number 9, Maximilian Gunter, who is on max attack at the moment, just getting ahead of Lando Norris, who's just done the fastest second sector. So Norris on a quick 1-2.
Yep, overall best middle sector for Lando Norris, waiting for him to complete the final very short sector. Lando Norris currently 5th.
And he should improve again. Here he comes out of the last corner. Slight adjustment there, but nice and smooth. Lando goes quickest, and finally into the 2:13s, a 2:13.971 by the Brit. Great lap then by Lando Norris, and mainly in the middle sector. That's where he made the time.
Sakaguchi is going incredibly well in this qualifying session. He's currently 10th, but he has just gone purple in the middle sector.
Was this faster than Lando's middle sector? Wow.
121.658, watching him. Up towards the line he goes. Expect this possibly to be on the front. It is
2:13.683 on his 7th lap. The Japanese hits the front, and he has got a lot of experience here at Macau, so no surprise to see him in the lead group as we go back with Callum Ilott, and he'll now complete his lap. Ilott moves up the board. Does he? Yes, only a bit though, by couple of tenths to 8th position, just behind Gunter as he goes on another lap, and he's got some clear track. You can see just in the distance going through Mandarin, a car in front of him, shouldn't be a problem. Boy, that corner's committed, isn't it?
Now we've got a little bit more of a predictable group at the front of the field, because we've got Sergio Sette Camara's up there, Lando Norris is up there, Pedro Piquet, and Joel Eriksson goes top.
Aha! And Dictum goes even quicker. Dictum goes 2:13.4. The times are dropping now. Big time. Joel Eriksson second. Sakaguchi in third at the moment. And Sette Camara now fourth. Lando Norris goes from hero to zero. He's down to fifth now. Pedro Piquet is on the board. Pedro Piquet, also one of the favourites here. The son of the triple Formula One world champion, Nelson, down in sixth place at the moment, just ahead of Gunter. Gunter, of course, third in the European Championship this year. So another man with great pedigree coming in here. And like I said, if you don't win the FIA Formula 3 Championship, you can redeem yourself by a win at Macau.
You certainly can. Yeah, we've got all the names that we would be expecting.
What a big lock-up into Lisboa. That'll cost him dearly, especially on tyre wear. It didn't lose him a lot of time, but it was a big lock-up.
Yeah, quite committed. And that's going to cost dearly, I fancy, as you rightly say. It's going to damage those tyres.
Yeah, and then it just doesn't feel right all the way round, does it?
Yeah, there's going to be a vibration for sure.
21 is Yamashita. Crossing the line with a 2:16.5, a top speed of 207k, but some 3 seconds off the pace, and that's a long, long road to climb here at Macau, with time running out. Just 16 minutes of this first qualifying session.
Callum Ilott has just improved. He's gone sixth now, 2:13.739, but I still think we're going to get an improvement from Callum Ilott. Sergio Sette Camara has dropped down into 7th place, so I think we can expect an improvement in position from Sette Camara as well.
And an impressive start by the new boys. Mick Schumacher in 11th place, Fenestraz in 13th place, and Jahan Daruvala, who's had a good season himself in Formula 3 this year. He is also starting well and confidently here at Macau. No prizes for winning in qualifying one. It's a case of getting some decent laps on the board and getting a decent setup and preserving, more importantly, those tyres. Through the Solitude Eshes then. Callum Ilott, certainly one of the favourites here, the Brit.
He's gone personal best in the first sector at 24.240. Now what's he going to do in this very, very long and challenging middle sector? This is where the time is really made up. This is where we get the clue as to a really impressive lap. And Callum Ilott had to back off there, and this is not going to be an overall impressive middle sector for Callum.
Callum, certainly one of the most experienced here at Macau, his third time of asking, and a best place of 5th last year. So really, he's going to do it. It's going to be this year for sure.
My goodness, this is so challenging, isn't it?
It really is. Eriksson then, through Policeman's and Moorish Hill, into the right-hander, down towards Donna Maria Bend.
And hang on, have a look at this. Pedro Piquet has gone overall best in the middle sector. 1:21.646 for Pedro Piquet.
Well, he's certainly going to, yeah, he's going to improve on that 8th position at the moment. And Piquet quietly goes about his business. He's a very unassuming young man, but fast as you like. Very smooth driver. Top. And does go top. 2:13.1. Well, I said somebody might get into the 2:12s. We're also now starting to see some slipstreaming, because this is another part of the racing here. You can actually sometimes get 2 slipstreams in one lap here at Macau, but certainly using another car, possibly a teammate, if you work in coordination. And yeah, you can get a lot more speed out of a lap, and top speed that is, and maybe take a few tenths off your time. You can see that most of the time is being made up on pure skill in the hill section, but also, like you say, sector 2 again, Maximilian Gunter goes quicker, a 1:21.5. Goes purple in that middle sector. So that's where the time at the moment is being made, but we're now starting to see some slipstreaming taking place down the main straights as Gunter now completes his lap. What will it be? He's third at the moment, and will he improve on his 2:13.6? Yes, and does a 2:13.1. So the time's dropping like flies as Gunter goes back to the top, and the German has definitely come to make his name at Macau. And while the Schumacher name might be the most famous name, Maximilian Gunter, who has had an outrageously good season, is looking to finish it off. And this is his second visit here, didn't get a result from last year, and therefore really looking to turn this one into a result. Third in the championship this year, Max. Definitely one of the stars of the future for sure.
And this is exactly what we were after. No problems on the track mean that they can get properly into a groove now. You mentioned about slipstreaming. That can't happen when they keep getting interruptions. So now everything is up to temperature. We can see proper fast laps coming in, and they are coming in thick and fast now. Maximilian Gunter on top of the times of 2:13.163. Pedro Piquet is second. Daniel Ticktum is third. Joel Eriksson is fourth, and Lando Norris is fifth. And we've still got 12 minutes just over of the session remaining.
And you can see people preparing themselves, tyre temperatures, and the number 26 just warming those tyres. That's Pedro Piquet of Brazil. The Brazilians have had such a fantastic record here. I think of people like Maurizio, De Grassi, you name it, it's a who's who. And of course, the great Ayrton Senna. And Moreno was in that one too. So a few Brazilians have done well here. And Piquet knows the history of this event all too well. And he's been looking forward to racing here for sure. Now, what can he do? Well, he's just done a very fast first sector and then gone straight on. There you go. That's Macau, folks. Yeah, that's not the quickest race round. He's just gone into the winds. Oh, no! He's taken a big off. Well, there I am laughing. That's actually not Piquet. I thought it was Piquet for a minute. That's actually at Fisherman's, and he has taken that corner out. And that is going to bring out the red flag.
Yep.
It certainly does. Now, that's exactly what we're talking about.
Yep.
The likes of Piquet, Ticktum, Eriksson, and Norris, and Gunter, of course, now taking a big intake of breath because they've got their lap in. And it's guys who, like Habsburg, who was top in the times, he's at 2:14.6. He knows he can go quicker than that, but he's not going to have a chance now. It's going to take a long time to get that repaired, and that's a big, big crash. And that car is destroyed. I thought it was Piquet for a moment because we flashed. He looked as though he ran on at Lisboa, but that was just a huge crash at Fisherman's. Definitely one of the fastest corners on the track outside of Mandarin.
Coming down the hill after the completion of Sector 2 and building speed, ever building speed down through Fisherman's. Incredible test of the mettle of the driver.
Well, I tell you what, it was a very hard impact because he hasn't bounced off the wall and down the road. He's ended up right there. So he went in there and stopped. So, big crash.
And we're going to have a significant final 11.5 minutes of this session when it gets back underway.
Yeah, then we're going to see how good these boys really are. Joel Eriksson staying cool and cold. It's a bit of fresh air on him.
This is Lando Norris, number 1.
And Sasha Van Astraz, number 5. He too getting some advice from his engineer, Frenchman, following the footsteps of Ocon. And again, another purple patch for French drivers of late. Really good young talent coming out of France. We had a situation years ago where it was all French winners here, but none of them were making it to Formula One. Finally, Ocon getting out there, doing the business.
So with 11.5 minutes when the session gets restarted.
Well, you've really got to go for broke now.
You really have.
I mean, my kind of philosophy, if you will, for Q1 is to just be in the top 10. If you can be in the top 10 or thereabouts, and beyond the pace, and the pace is at 2:13.1 right now in terms of fastest man out there. And Ericsson is on that pace. He's on a 2:13.6. Anybody who's within a second, and in fact, the top 8 are all in the 2:13s. And then the 9th position, really impressed so far, but I don't want to overkill it. But Mick Schumacher, really impressive. 10th quickest. There's Devlin Di Francesco. Character.
He is, yeah.
Yeah, great character.
He's a good guy.
Just 8. Yeah. He's only 17. Still a youngster making his debut here. Tadasuke Makino. Callum.
I still think we're going to see more from him. He is one of those drivers during this session that I do think we've got something to look forward to before the end of this session.
Yep, he's got the Midas touch, and that Ferrari logo on his helmet and on the side of the car tells you that they think the same too. He is now a Ferrari Academy driver along with Guang Yu Zhou. And it's not fair few. Marciello has won as well back in the day.
Bad when you get an endorsement from Ferrari or Red Bull or McLaren. It's quite a pat on the back, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it really is. And it just, I would have thought if you were an up-and-coming driver and you weren't quite sure if you'd made it, when you get a little sticker on the side of the car that says, "We're watching you," it does two things. It says, uh-oh, bit of pressure, and you put a target on your back. And here is, well, that's after the crash. That was a big off. And it is Sette Camera. I wasn't quite sure of 100%. No. It's Sergio Sette Camera in 8th position. And without doubt, one of the favourites for this race, out of qualifying 1 in dramatic fashion. I didn't want to jump the gun if it wasn't him. Exactly. And I couldn't believe my eyes. Yeah. But it was. And the man who's come back to Formula 3 just for this race has taken a massive shunt. And let's hope he's okay, first and foremost. But the Brazilian, he's okay, I'm told. So at least he ran away as quick as possible. Being a smart Brazilian, he realized just exactly how precarious a position he was in and got out quickly, because that is, again, I mean, this is one of the scary parts of Macau, is that, you know, every corner's blind. You saw the 2 cars coming around the corner. They would have had no idea just exactly what the situation was. Luckily, the car ended up offline, but that was a big moment for Sette Camera. And the man who was 3rd here last year makes the headlines here in Q1, having set, one of the fastest times this morning. So that is a classic Macau story. 1 minute you're hero, the next you're at Fisherman's without a fishing rod.
Yeah, and as you say, we've got another qualifying session at the end of tomorrow, so they essentially replicate the sessions that they've had today on track tomorrow. They've got a free practice session at 11:45 tomorrow morning, local time, and then 3:25, slightly later in the afternoon, they've got their second qualifying session. And so, although this is qualifying, it's not the last chance qualifying for them. That comes tomorrow afternoon for the qualification race. And then the qualification race, looking forward to the 64th Macau Grand Prix on Sunday.
Yeah, of course, they have a second qualifying session, so it's not all for naught, but you never know. It could be pouring down with rain.
It could, yeah.
But Sette Camera will be back, I'm sure, but that's not helped his weekend whatsoever, the current Formula 2 man. And if I'm not right in saying, isn't he a test driver or a reserve driver for Force India? I think he is. So we await the resumption of the fun and games that are the Macau Grand Prix as we look at the youngster Pedro Piquet of Brazil. And while his tail is up as he is second, his fellow countryman is sadly on the sidelines having to watch, having destroyed part of Fisherman's Bend. And thankfully, back in the day, I remember Dodgy Laurel back in the day, and I say I remember it was 1956 or something, but I read about Dodgy Laurel, the Filipino driver who literally ended up in the sea.
Wow.
Because there was no wall then.
Goodness.
He came back and won it. Not that year, but...
Attention in pit lane.
Not a lot of talk. I think it's pretty clear
Please be advised
the game.
the qualifying session will be resumed, but not before 15:20.
Interesting.
Will be resumed,
Yeah.
but not before 15:20.
So if you can't hear the announcements we're hearing in our ears, we've just heard from George Munro, who is effectively the man who lets the drivers and the teams know that resumption of this Formula 3 qualifying one will take place, but it'll be at least 20 minutes before they resume, so they're all getting out of the cars.
More. Yeah.
And could be more, yeah. That is absolutely a guesstimate of time. Jonathan Noble watching on.
Yeah, so not before 3:20, which is 15 minutes away.
Yeah. Which gives us a chance to perhaps talk about some of the guys we haven't talked about yet, and everybody catching their breath, a little wink. And yeah, it's this is a tough time for a driver because the adrenaline is flowing, you're ready to go, and suddenly it's like down tools, and you've got to rethink it. But if you're in trouble and you're not sure what the problem is, and if you're Ferdinand Habsburg in 10th place, and you're thinking, I can be quicker than this, you've got a chance now to sit down with your engineers and look at the data.
And you can't afford to lose concentration to get out of the zone that you put yourself in for the
Well, that's criminal, yeah.
for the time we've had on track so far.
But that's what makes this so challenging,
It is,
because you
yeah.
don't. I mean,
so many challenges.
you've been to Formula 3 races all over
Yeah.
Europe. This is not what happens.
No. Just having a look down at that damage, it is going to take a little while.
Now,
Maybe
got our first glimpse of the official car, BMW, this year. And BMW supplying the safety cars. Wang Yu's out, the academy driver. Big year for him, big Macau for him. Needs to come away with a result from this, I feel. Don't think he's set the world alight yet, and I think he knows it. Currently in 11th position.
And as we just have a look down the order,
Yeah, is there anybody that should be further up? I think Daruvula, even though he is making his debut here, I think I would expect him to be further up the
I'd
board.
expect Yamashita to be further up as well. Kenta Yamashita is currently down in 13th place in car number 21. He's one that we would expect to be right up there as well. Good experience here at Macau.
Tall, isn't he?
He is, yeah.
It's funny, when the days before streaming, I used to literally be in the pits with them. Loved it. That was my favourite thing, was to be in qualifying, you know, in one of the pits, and then just kind of wander down from each one,
yeah.
see the intensity, and it does get very intense.
Pretty intense, yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
Pretty hot down there as well. It's not surprising that they have elected, knowing that they wouldn't be going out for at least 15 minutes to get out of the car and to not just go through a bit of data, but also to release the overalls and just get a bit of a breath, because it is a warm day now, a hot day, properly hot, and they would be they'd be cooking in the cockpit if they stayed in there.
Yeah, no kidding.
So into the relative shade, high humidity when we arrived here on Tuesday.
Yeah, and those umbrellas, if you're not familiar with the sight of China,
Yeah,
having lived here myself, those umbrellas are very much to keep the heat off. A sensible move. It's hot out there.
88 degrees, 88% humidity when I arrived here, and it doesn't really go much lower than that, does it?
No. Another thing that maybe it's worth talking about, because we don't get a lot of chance to talk during practice, but a lot of the guys who come to Macau, because it's such a one-off race, they actually don't race necessarily for the team they've been racing for all season long.
No, which
so
is...
they might be just given, so they got with a brand new engineer, brand new team. So there's a lot of familiarization needs to go on besides just trying to be fast.
It's such a one-off event, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so many things are unpredictable, and they do change. And it's just great that so many names decide to come here. Young drivers yet to make their name, and drivers that have already had success. This is the first year, I think, for quite a few years that we haven't had one or two or three drivers that come back year after year. Alexander Sims isn't back here. How many starts has he done? I think 7 or something.
7, yeah, I think it was.
And it's a shame. Alexander missed the birth of his second child last year when he was here in Macau.
David Kennedy, just on the right there, part of the Theodore setup. Long-time motor racing man. The problem here is that with Piquet's car. It's always good to look at the tyres now too. Bit of work going on here. What's going on here?
This is on Callum Ilot's car. Cameraman's doing his best
to help us out,
getting right in there and seeing the adjustments that are being made.
So each of the drivers choosing his own way to deal with the delay. And if you've just joined us, if you're watching this on the live stream, this is the 64th running of the Macau Grand Prix and the headline event, the Formula 3 World Cup for the FIA Formula 3 World Cup. And it really is pretty tense affair for these young drivers. And 1 minute, as I said, you can be a hero like Sergio Sette Camara, third last year, and then not into a day's work here, and he's thrown it into the wall at Fisherman's. And that is rare, to be fair. It happens in the race quite a lot, because as the race goes on, it's easy to get out of step at Fisherman's, because, you know, you're just pushing on and you just clip the wall. But he took a chunk out of the wall.
Really did. And not just the repair of the wall, which has to be done before things get back underway, but also the sweeping up of the debris as well. And I reckon the marshals that work here at Macau are probably the most experienced at doing exactly that. They're on post this morning. It's local time now, 3:10 in the afternoon. 7 o'clock, 6:30. They've been there a long time. It's a long day, and once this qualifying session is complete, we've got qualifying for the Sun City Group Macau Motorcycle Grand Prix, and that's one to hang on for. Tremendously exciting, the motorcycles around the gear circuit here at Macau.
And remember, this is a progression. This is a 4-day event. We have a qualification race, effectively. That's what we like to call it anyway, because it's the provisional race. And then the main race. So your position, your result in race 1. And so you can, if you like, recover from a bad qualifying, move up the board with a good race, and then be in a position to win overall the final, the final race, and become, the Macau champion. That's easier said than done.
It is, yeah. So too is anything that you're asked of to do at Macau, because there are so many things that you cannot plan for, and these qualifying sessions are always full of surprises and full of challenges as well. Just looking at Sergio Sette Camara's car down there in the garage.
A bit of a mess, isn't it?
That's going to require an awful lot of work.
And for those who are tuning in from Brazil, he's okay, we're told. But he did take a big knock. And we've got the FIA delegate there, just checking it out. And safety is so paramount, especially the street circuit. They pride themselves to Macau and everybody involved in the event on their safety record here. And there's a lot of training and a lot of careful preparation goes on. And for example, that repaired tyre wall there. They will not let those cars out until they're 100% sure that it can do its job again after the damage. And it'll be interesting to see how quickly they get this car back together. I would say, and I would argue, that they ain't going to get it together in the next 11 minutes and 29 seconds.
No, that's a good prediction.
Of when, well, they've got a little bit longer than that because, as we said, we're not going to get underway. We reckon we've got about 5 minutes to go before we get underway, and that's a long way from being anywhere close to being ready. So I would have said game over, Red Rover.
Just
goes, Mr. Camera.
It just goes to show, though, doesn't it? Because Sergio Sette Camera is perhaps the most experienced driver that we've got in the field this year for the FIA F3 World Cup.
I always think it's tough, though. He's coming back from Formula 2 and getting into a Formula 3 car. No mean feat. And not because, you know, I mean, he's driving a more powerful car, but, you know, it's a very tricky car, the Formula 3, and if you haven't been driving one all year, you know, not an easy thing to do.
And that is exactly why when, after a couple of years in DTM, I wondered about Antonio Felix da Costa last year getting back in a Formula 3 car. And he rather proved that it was a great decision, having won his, for the second time here at Macau last year. It is, it's a unique car, a Formula 3 car, not least to start a Formula 3 car, to get it off the line quickly.
What I like about this year's field, we've got a real mix of experience and inexperience, I suppose. You've got the likes of Devlin Di Francesco, who's just 17, first time out. Habsburg, who we see in the background there. He's back for his second trip here, and certainly one of the favourites. No winners. Like I said, Sergio Sette Camera, probably the one of most experienced. He was third here last year, and you'd have to say one of the favourites. Callum Ilott. Likewise, will be one of the favourites here. Mick Schumacher making his debut here. Guan Yu Zhou, there's his car. Coming back, he raced here last year. You know, there's some good stories up and down. And then you've got the likes of Joel Eriksson, who, this is his second visit, but he really didn't get a lot of time in. Not classified last year. We had quite a few incidents last year. And so there's some stories up and down. But we're going to get a new champion for sure.
Certainly will. And as we wait for the resumption of the session, it's time to just reflect on the times as they were when we stopped the clock with 11 minutes and 29 seconds remaining. Number 9, Maximilian Günther, was quickest, 2:13.163. There are in total now 8 cars that all got into the 2:13s. And perilously close to ducking down into the 2:12s. A 2:13.163 for Maximilian Günther. Pedro Piquet, car number 26, second quickest, 2:13.198. Daniel Tixum, Dan Tixum in car number 18, the Red Bull liveried car, 2:13.317. Joel Eriksson fourth with a 2:13.637. Lando Norris, car number 1, 2:13.674, and Sakaguchi is sixth with a 2:13.683. Callum Ilott, the penultimate car in the 2:13s, 2:13.739, and in 8th place. The reason for the red flag and the break in proceedings, Sergio Sette Camera with a 2:13.884. Now, drivers are beginning to get themselves back and ready. We were told not before 3:20. They need to be ready at 3:20 in case the word comes from the course workers.
Thing is, to get in quickly. Now, interesting enough, it's given me a chance to kind of go back over the history books. Look at them taping that together, but it should hold. But I'm just looking at the times from last year at this particular juncture, and Antonio Felix da Costa, the Portuguese driver, did a 2:11.5 in qualifying 1 this time last year. Callum Ilott, incidentally, was 2:11.7. He, of course, in this race as well, but 2:13.7 by him so far in 7th position. So Callum, I know, will be saying to himself, listen, I was 2 seconds quicker than this time last year, and all right, the conditions may be different.
And he's had now a tweak to the car, so we'll see whether that tweak is more to his liking when we get the session back underway.
Interestingly, again this time last year. Yamashita was up there in the top 4. Juncadella was just behind him in 5th place. Sete Camera, incidentally, was 6th after first qualifying. Lando Norris, with a time of 2:11.9, was in 7th position, excuse me. So, I mean, expecting this last 11 minutes to be even quicker. And I do think everybody will be going for glory a little bit, so to speak.
Session to be resumed at 15:22 local, not confirmed. So 3 minutes away, we think, and that's a notification on the timing screen, but not confirmed yet, I guess, from race control. So drivers do need to be thinking about getting themselves back in the cockpit, because with 11 minutes and 29 seconds remaining, every second of this resumption is going to count. They need to get everything back up to temperature. Everything will have, relatively speaking, cooled down in pit lane.
Yeah, it's the worst scenario, really. Look, you can see drivers taking different ways of kind of preparing themselves, but this is probably the hardest thing to do, is to kind of refocus. It's not that they don't know what they're doing, but it's just, you know, you've had the adrenaline running, you've had a rhythm going, you had a plan, but the plan goes out the window, and you don't know what the track's going to be like. You've got 11 minutes to kind of do something special, and there's probably going to be 1, maybe 2 chances at it, and that's the hard part.
So just watching Dan Ticktum getting himself back with helmet in place, getting himself ready to get back out on track. I'm not sure this...
He doesn't look too... See, that's the difference. Everybody's got a different approach. He looks very laid back.
Yep.
Just got the fan on him, taking his time. It's a boy. And the number 11. And one of the few Toyota entries. Tom's Toyota anyway, have had a great history here at this event.
It's not going to be 13:22, 15:22, because more work is required now.
Yeah, and they're putting in new wall sections. I think the smart idea. They try to tape it up and try to move it on quickly, but I think as we take a look at Mr. Schumacher, he says, who are you looking at? You're looking at me.
I'm on telly.
Yeah, Mick Schumacher. That's me. Well, he's with the right team, that's for sure. Bit of history there for sure. I wonder how aware he is of that history. I'm sure they've made him well known at Theodore Racing just what to race for the great Teddy Yip is all about.
Dan Ticktum being strapped into the Red Bull car. A huge step in a driver's career when you get the backing from one of these programs, Red Bull included, and when you're out in a Red Bull liveried car, huge endorsement of your accomplishments so far. Well,
that's also, you know, so many drivers often get discovered here at Macau. It's not always the obvious Lando Norrises. You can, you know, Mick Schumacher that we're looking at right now is a good example. Sure, he's got the famous name, but that doesn't mean anything. He's had an interesting run in terms of his career. He's taken a different path than a lot of drivers his age. You know, he's raced in Asia. He's not had the classic, if you will, motor racing background, but he's made his way quietly, so to speak, and got on with it. But yeah, there's a lot of drivers who get noticed at Macau. I remember, you know, Robert Kubica was one of them. Robert, before he became sort of famous with his V8 3.5 escapades, he was a relative unknown Certainly had no sponsorship, and I remember Mario Tyson, who was here with BMW and with the touring cars, kind of just sort of, you know, keeping a watchful eye, and I do distinctly remember him having a conversation with him and kind of, hey, give me a call when you get back to Europe type thing, and the rest, as they say, is history. And he still remains in the frame to this day, having had a sensational start to his Formula One career, and is still in the picture as a possible driver replacement at Williams again. But I think that is starting to fade away, I think.
It was a good idea to patch up the wall and try it, but it's not worked, and therefore that's why we're still waiting.
Yeah, afraid so.
Unfortunately, the drivers all got themselves ready for that 15:22 restart and are now strapped in and ready to go, but it's going to be a few more minutes with those new blocks being put into place down on the...
I'll tell you what I would be doing. If I were a driver now, I'd be trying to work out just exactly... I would probably leave the setup if I was happy with it in the hill section and I had a good sector 2 time. And I would then concentrate on either following my teammate or finding someone to get a tow from down the main straight and time it so that you come out of Fisherman's behind somebody within a few lengths of them so that you can absolutely get that slingshot. That would be my tactics, and that has been the tactics of the good ones over the years. All good on paper, mind you.
Yeah, it's interesting to watch as well how different drivers attack these interventions in different ways. Do you want to get yourself into the cockpit nice and early? You're going to get hot, but you can get focused. We had it last year before the qualification race, didn't we? When we had
well, if you're a Habsburg, you just have a Sarni. There you go. Yeah, he looks really, really stressed, doesn't he?
Not really.
No. Yep, we're looking at you too, mate. He's a great character, actually.
A banana and a drink, why not? But we had the drivers getting out of the cars on the grid last year for the qualification race, didn't we? Some of them electing to sit down actually on the track and keep out the way of anyone else, keep themselves to themselves. Some of them electing to stay in the cockpit a little bit longer, some of them standing by the cars, and everybody's got their own way of preparing and staying in focus for the resumption of the session, which could come at any moment. They were told to be ready from 15:22. It's now 15:26 local time, and we've got that all-important 11 minutes and 29 seconds of this qualification session remaining. And also they've got another qualifying session at the end of tomorrow afternoon, around about this time actually. About 3:25 is when it's scheduled to get underway, and already they get to work.
Yeah, you know, if this delay continues, they may just get him out again. I doubt it, but a fair bit of work to go on Sergio Setecamera's car. There's Devlin Di Francesco, the young 17-year-old Canadian, racing under a British license. But like the likes of Alessandro Rossi, he chose to come to Europe instead of going the Indy route. Even though picked out by Ganassi, he wanted to try his hand at taking on the very best of Europe. And really, that still is if you want to get to Formula One, still is the obvious route. Although now, with the emergence of F3 Americas, there may well be more Americans on this grid in a few years' time. Personally involved in watching the development of F4 and F3. They were recently on the support race to the Formula One race at the Circuit of the Americas, and it was great to see some of the up-and-coming talent from the United States and around the world, because it's not just Americans in the championship. There's a lot of guys using that series to make their way, and it wouldn't surprise me if in years to come we get a few more numbers from that part of the world. We had some good Americans here. Gustavo Menezes, of course, a couple of years ago. Also, Santino Ferrucci, of course, the test driver for Haas F1, also took part in Macau. But now, these are the up-and-coming stars. Ralph Aaron, we haven't said much about him, the Estonian, following in the footsteps of Martin Rump, I was reminded last night. I kept thinking to myself, who was that Estonian that came here? And, of course, he's still here in Asia. Martin, racing in GTs, but we haven't had too many Estonians.
He's currently down in 17th place. His time a 2:15.737. And of the rookies, Devlin G. Francesco is just behind him in 18th place.
I have to say, really impressed with Mick Schumacher. Not a bad start to his weekend. 2:14.6.
He's been impressive all day.
Well, he hasn't been out of the top 10.
No.
And for a guy who's never seen the place, not bad.
Dan Ticktum got himself in the car and has now got himself out of the car.
You've got a not a soft spot, but I've got a feeling you think he's going to do the business here.
I think he might do well this weekend.
Yeah.
I've just got a feeling about Dan. He goes back into the garage to cool down. He's calm.
Yes.
That's the thing. He looks very
well. That's key to Macau, isn't it? Really.
Yeah. And that really is one of the key factors about this race. You can't be tense.
B-Max Racing Team, they've got a good history here too. And yeah, everybody just wondering just when. And if you've just joined us and you're wondering what on earth's happening, well, we've had a big crash and it involved one of the top racers here, Sete Câmara of Brazil, who smashed into Fisherman's Bend at big speed and literally took the wall out, or took the barrier out. Crushed his car in the process, and they are now trying to fix it, but having done a little take job on it, they weren't satisfied with the result and have now brought in some more plastic safety barrier and are in the process, as we speak, of replacing what is one of the fastest corners at the Macau Grand Prix. And safety is always paramount, doesn't matter about the time. That's how the schedule is based, and we wait with them as you do. So wherever you're tuning in, that's what the delay is. That's why the session was stopped, and we wait. And we are 3/4 of the way through qualifying one in one of the longest delays we've had in qualifying in a fair few years here.
It is, yeah. And the officials and the marshals know well these delays can crop up at any point. It's the most significant delay we've had in any of the sessions.
Yeah,
so far
ironically, the headline event of the most skilled drivers, and we've got the longest delay.
Yeah, and it was quite the opposite in free practice. They were able to get many laps without having a problem. But now all of a sudden it gets competitive, and it gets properly competitive when it's a qualifying session. Still giving an opportunity for teams to tinker with the cars and effect any changes, modifications, or
yeah, one thing's for
repairs.
Sure. Yeah, one thing's for sure. You better have it right now. You've had plenty of time, boys.
Plenty of time. Who was it who was having a little bit of a tweak on the front of the car? Callum Ilott, wasn't it? And still, we've yet to see what that tweak
could do.
Does for him. He's down there in 7th place at the moment, 2:13.739, and we expected he would maybe a little bit higher up. Marina Sato getting a massage.
And why not? Now, the reason we wax rhapsodic about this event is because it really does read like a who's who, and names that you may not be familiar with, maybe you don't know who Marino is, but the names that have been here were unknown when they arrived. Lewis Hamilton certainly came with a reputation. Jacques Villeneuve, of course, a famous racing name, just as Pedro Piquet is this year. But Jacques Villeneuve is a good example, to be honest. I don't think anybody really knew if he had what it took. It's all very well having a famous name, but Jacques came here and took part in the Formula 3 back in '91, finishing 8th. And, of course, that year, David Coulthard won the race. And the following year, Villeneuve was on the podium before heading off and becoming both an Indy and Formula One superstar and world champion. Jenson Button, likewise. I remember that year distinctly because there was a prize. We used to race here at Macau. They go on to Korea. So there were 2 races here at Macau, and then the whole train load, aeroplane load, was exported over to Korea to a street race there. And there was an offer of 100,000, I think it was, US dollars to anybody who could win all four races. And duly enough, Mr. Button did so.
It's, I always think it's great when those prizes, those incentives are offered up. It does make everything that much more intense, doesn't it?
Yep. Sebastian Vettel arrived here in 2005, just 18 years of age. Same age as this man. And again, 4 world titles to his name. And T-Boy, he raced here in 1902, I believe. Long before they had the current race in 1954. It's a long delay.
It is quite a long delay.
Deafening silence out there, isn't it?
It really is. And the longer it goes on, the more critical it is for drivers to remain focused in the zone.
Okay.
So 3:45 local time.
Provisionally in 10 minutes.
Which in total will have given us a delay of approaching an hour.
That's wild. Yeah, it's gone by quickly, but it's a long delay. And rightly so. You've got to have safety. It's got to be right. But that's tough. That's very tough for these drivers. And, you know, the truth is mental fatigue. I mean, these guys are all fit as fiddles. But at the same time, you know, that adrenaline is running through your body.
And do you know the other thing that's happened?
It's cooled down.
It's cooled down. It's become a little overcast. The sunshine is not beating down on the track as it was. So conditions will have changed.
Yeah, and I noticed there's a breeze picking up as well from the harbour. We're right on the sea wall. So weather can change quite quickly here. And you can see from the movement of the trees just there that conditions are changing quite quickly. But you're right, they've got to be very careful. This warm-up lap or out lap will be very, very important because conditions, whether you like it or not, will have changed.
And it's not beyond the realms of possibility that in 11 minutes and 29 seconds, there might be another break in proceedings because this is so ultra competitive. It means so much. Not just to the drivers, but to the teams as well. This really is a crowning glory on the end of a Formula 3 season.
Well, and as we've seen in the past, it can make or break a career. It really can.
It really can. Totally. So with a scheduled resumption of qualifying, 3:45, just less than 10 minutes now for the drivers. And so that's just a provisional time at the moment. It could change. But they've been here before. So they need to be ready for that time.
Yeah, I think tactically it's going to be very interesting to see who does what here. Because you've got a choice. Either get out quick, get out first, get going, get some laps in, predicting that somebody might have a prang. Or if you're feeling comfortable, you've got a time in already, maybe holding back, but it's a gamble.
And we should also be thinking about qualifying for the motorcycle Grand Prix, which was scheduled to get underway in about 2.5 minutes.
Yes, Richard Nichols will be having conniptions outside.
Yeah, yes, he will. And the riders as well, as the circuit changes, will be looking on with interest.
It's our first real look at Ralph Aaron and making his debut here at Macau. Exciting prospect to race the circuit for the first time, for sure. I've never seen anybody disappointed with it.
No, that's true.
Or saying it wasn't as good as I thought it might be.
Yeah, I don't think I'll go back.
Yeah. You only have to look at the GT.
Phrases you never hear.
Yeah, things you never hear at Macau. Yeah, you know, you just have to look at the GT field. It's a who's who of who raced here. Rosenquist, Juncadella. I'm sure they're all watching on, having done their session. And probably wry smile saying, "Yeah, I've been there. I remember it well." So, folks, we're about to get underway. There are 11 minutes to go. And at the moment, it's the German, Maximilian Günther, who leads the way with a 2:13.163. But I read earlier the top 6 times from qualifying this time last year, which were run in similar conditions, I may add. And the times were down in the 2:11s. And so we are expecting a significant drop in those times. But having said that, as we just pointed out, conditions have changed slightly. There's been a long delay, and that could affect everything. Pedro Piquet was second quickest, and Daniel Ticktum of Great Britain third. So a German, a Brazilian, and a Brit.
And you know, we've been talking about drivers keeping themselves in the zone, keeping themselves focused. This is just the kind of time when something could potentially be overlooked by the team as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Because you've had so long, they've been standing around, they've been chatting, they've been essentially just passing time, and then all of a sudden, oh, hang on, we haven't done this or we haven't done that, which is easy done. And you've got these lengthy...
Well, also, 11 minutes gives you the opportunity, I would argue, to get out, do a warm-up lap, do a flying lap, come back in, change tyres, change a couple of tyres, whatever, and do so potentially 2 flying laps if something's wrong and you want to change something, or you go for glory and do all 11 minutes and just go as fast as you can.
That's a great shot, isn't it?
Yeah,
Lando
brilliant.
Norris getting himself ready to
I love the lid.
Track. Yeah, the lid is good. If not convenient for having a drink.
This is true. Thank our sponsors, Sun City, and a host of others. Yokohama, of course, providing the tyres.
It's confirmed now. So 3:45, 4 minutes away is the confirmation.
And what you'll generally see now is they tend to fire up and then get in line literally at the pit exit, waiting for the green flag to wave. And some might hold back, but I would have thought everybody's anxious to get out there and see what the conditions just exactly are.
Lando on that last restart that we saw got the advantage, getting that. It really did put in a committed outslap, and made sure that he didn't have anyone behind him bothering him from behind, and certainly he had no one in front, being the first point in pit lane to get out on circuit. He was eager to get straight out. So that was significant for Lando, currently 5th. Maximilian Günther is currently at the top of the times. Joel Eriksson is currently 4th. 2:13.637 for Joel Eriksson. So what's going to happen on this resumption? 11 minutes and 29 seconds remain. I think the only thing that we're about to see is whether the tweak to Callum Ilot's car is going to pull him up the order. I didn't see any other cars having any changes made significantly while...
No, I was actually surprised actually how little sort of tinkering was done.
Tweaking,
because, well, you know, like I said, it's a double-edged sword to have a delay like this, because it can be an advantage if you're struggling, It can be a disadvantage if you've got everything right and you just want to get on with it. Yeah, a little snooze for Lando. How about that?
It's the visualization that you see so much.
Yeah, don't think he's having a sleep.
so many times, visualizing the lap. And it's incredible.
Nah, it's just jet lag, mate.
Drivers, how early do they come out? I remember Alexander Sims was pretty much a week before to get ready. And
well,
there
is an interesting story there, actually, funnily enough, seeing Lando with his eyes closed, because, funnily enough, officially, he wasn't supposed to be here today. And he was about to arrive. In fact, he probably would have made this last 11 minutes because he was due to arrive at about 2 o'clock.
And you know all about that. That time zone travel.
Oh, it's just it's
the jet lag is
grueling.
Significant, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's the opposite end of the world. You know, you lose a day. Saturday, when I arrived, I missed a day completely.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. And Lando, of course, was due to be tyre testing for McLaren in Brazil
and
after
then
the
goes
Interlagos
straight
race.
into qualifying.
Yeah.
So that's
to be honest, I think he would have missed it from a safety point of view. I say safety, but you know, from a point of view of just that jet lag, and they would have just. I mean, Carlin knows enough about the data. He knows enough about the track, and he could have gone straight into second qualifying and free practice, and probably would have still qualified in the top 10. As it is, they cancelled the test. Due to safety, actually. There was quite a few robberies, and Pirelli, in fact, were one of the main factors in having that tyre test cancelled. And so that kind of was a reprieve. So we've got a few seconds to go, but I can tell you that Lando Norris is very much here, very much in evidence. He's currently 5th, but I don't think we've seen his quickest lap of today. A 2:13.6 so far after 7 laps. The most laps done so far by Gunter, who is leading the way by 10. He's got 10 laps under his belt, and he is the fastest man out there. But we're about to get an adrenaline surge here at Macau. Perfect conditions, slightly cooler than it was about an hour ago, and the clock has started ticking down, and we are qualifying again. And this warm-up lap, Alan Hyde, is, as I said, a very, very important lap because things have changed, time has gone on, and now you've got to perform right.
It's critical. When we got the red flag previously, they had just begun to get themselves into a groove, and lo and behold, red flag came out, and they've now really had that groove totally destroyed. So everything needs to be got back up to temperature. They've got 11 minutes in order to do it, and there is no guarantee that this final 10 minutes, 11 minutes of this session is going to run completely smoothly as well. So they need to make this count. This outlap is all significant. We saw how significant it was last time, and once again, it's going to be about really pushing on during this outlap and getting everything up to temperature and instantly putting in a meaningful lap. That's got to happen now.
Yeah, I'm just looking at both car 5, that's Sasha Fanastras, and car number 6, Devlin Di Francesco. Their line astern behind each other, and they're about 3rd in line, which is good for getting a little bit of a draft, perhaps, down that straight, depending on the setup, because, of course, if you set the car with no real wing, you might get some good speed down the back straight, or you might put a little bit more downforce on and get yourself some mechanical grip around this part of the circuit at the back, as the mountain section, as we call it. It's hardly a mountain, but the gear hill of which this circuit runs around just over 6 kilometers. That's another factor here. It's a very long lap, and longer than any of the F3 laps that they do in the current season in any of the championships. So again, a different experience if they've not done it before.
It's not like an end-of-season party, is it, this weekend? It's
it ain't a party.
Demanding.
It's a lot of fun, but it's no cakewalk, as they say.
There'll be a party on Sunday night, but once the work is done. But this is incredibly physically and mentally demanding for these young drivers.
Here we go then, and second across the line is Daruvala of India. He passes past our commentary position, chasing the number 3 of Ferdinand Habsburg. They know each other well, raced together both in Formula 3 and in the Toyota Racing Series all year. So these two know each other exceedingly well. I think Habsburg's got a feeling that he can do something special here this weekend.
He dropped down the order, didn't he? He's currently 10th.
Yeah, he's got some work to do in this session, and I think that's probably why he went straight out, and he's got clean air. He's in a great position to just go out and put a lap in. And if Deruvala can get him or catch up with him, he may just have a chance of slipstreaming him, but I think they've both given themselves, and their teammates, remember, a little bit of space. So it is Habsburg who leads the way. Royalty, no less, here at Macau. There is a connection. Prince Bira raced here.
Well,
there you go. And now we've got a Habsburg.
And the other one that we're looking for to improve, Kenta Yamashita, this time last year, as you quite rightly said, he was right up there in the
fourth quickest,
in the top 6, top 4. So yeah, we're looking for improvements from him. He's down there in 13th place, the Japanese driver, car number 21.
Yeah, I expect him to. Oh, Habsburg, big moment there as he came through policeman's now, and he really is. Oh, and he's blown it! Habsburg has blown it. And he's gone off on the exit of Moorish Hill and down the side road just when he was on a quick lap. And that is exactly what we're talking about. He's managed to get it going again. Look, and he hasn't damaged the car. He may just have given himself a lucky break there because it looks as though there's no damage to the car, but he went straight on there.
If there is no damage, then he's just about...
I think there is, though. Look at the... Well, that could be the camera of the car. I don't know. But it looked as though that right front could be damaged. And he's going very slowly, so he's not up to speed at all.
It doesn't look right.
No. So, problems for Habsburg. Just as we were building him up, he's let us down and himself, I'm afraid.
But despite that, the good news is the car has got back. It's potentially going to be able to make its way back to complete the lap. So no interruptions to the session.
That's true.
That's so important.
So just over 6 minutes to go. Time ticking down. Who is improving? No one at the moment. It's the top 3. Tictum, incidentally, still in the pits, as is Joel Eriksson. They are waiting to do one flying run by the looks of things, and I think they're being tactical here. They know they've got a good benchmark. You can't win anything on qualifying 1, so maybe just do one more run on as fresh a tyres as possible and wait for a clean gap and hope that there isn't another incident. PK, we're watching his time. He is currently 2nd on the road, and as you can see, coming at us, 2:13.1 at the moment. He's done 8 laps. He's down towards Donna Maria Bend. Nice and smooth, one of the smoothest drivers you can ever watch. Pedro Piquet, he learned his skill well from his maestro of a father, and looking to make a name for himself here this weekend.
And a wonderfully retrospective Piquet-esque helmet as well.
Yes, very much so, yeah. Those were his father's colours. So, coming out of Fisherman's, they've repaired it. That was the reason for the delay. He comes to our bend, and he'll start what should be another quick lap, but has he gone quicker this time? I don't think so. 2:13.198 was his time. Now Lando Norris goes 1:20.5 in the 2nd sector as we go back on board with the young Brit with one more corner to go. Norris on a flyer and looking to improve from 5th place. He's taking a nice wide line, tucks it inside. Nicely held, and here comes Lando Norris of Great Britain, following in the footsteps of so many great Brits, and he's done it, 2:12.1. Finally, somebody breaks down from 2:13, and that was a superb lap by the McLaren protege.
A second quicker.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Gunter.
I think somebody else will get into those sorts of times, but Lando has set the benchmark with less than 5 minutes to go here as he heads down to Lisboa. Don't think he'll go any quicker on this lap, though he might be giving it a go.
He's put in a personal best on that first sector.
Saying that, yeah.
24.361.
He's absolutely going for it.
He is.
Gunter's also on a quick one, though, as well. He's only a 10th off that fastest time, too.
In the first sector, so 24.4 for Gunter in the first sector. It's only short. It's only a short first sector. It's the middle sector, the one they are on now, which is the significant one. As we look at Mick Schumacher, who has equipped himself very nicely indeed today.
Yeah, really impressed with the youngster. Son, of course, of the 7-time Formula 1 world champion Michael Schumacher, Oh, and another incident, and this time involving the number 2, and that is the Indian, Jahan Daruvala, who has blown it. And that is at the exit of San Francisco. He'll have clipped the wall by going too strong into that corner, and he's going backwards quickly, and hopefully he'll be able to get out the way, because that could ruin everybody else's time.
Well, Gunter and Norris have already been through, so they're past. They're in the middle sector, and Gunter has just put in a personal best in the middle sector, 1:21.143, completes the lap, only goes second, stays second, 2:12.619.
But has improved, yeah.
But what of Lando Norris? His middle, he goes quicker. Purple again in the middle sector.
Wow. So Lando Norris on an absolute flyer, and as you say, he's safe because he's in that position of having gone past the incident and is absolutely going to make hay while the sun shines. Here he comes, and unfortunately he's got a slower car weaving in front of him and just getting himself prepared. Lando shouldn't be affected by that. He comes across the line now and should improve from 2:12.1 to 2:11.5. He's unbelievable lap. Fantastic. Well, same sort of pace that he was on last year. He's got lucky there in many ways because the car in front of him was warming their tyres up, and that's Ferdinand Habsburg, who has recovered from that incident, and now Habsburg will try to go for a lap.
Pedro Piquet's gone second at 2:12.482, so under a second difference between Piquet and Norris now, first and second.
Big lap for Habsburg. This could make or break his Grand Prix weekend, and now the caution flag is out for that strewn car, the Daruvala, his teammate. He goes past the incident, but he's back on the pace again now. Lando Norris goes quicker again in the first sector. Or quicker, I should say, in the first sector.
Personal best, 24.044.
Along the hill section, we'll look for the red flag is out. So Habsburg, unfortunately, does not get the chance to improve. And Habsburg, I'm afraid, mate, it's over.
Yep, 1 minute and 48 remain. So,
to be fair, it is only first qualifying, and therefore
session
and it won't be resumed.
Yeah.
So that is it. But I'm kind of giving the death knell to Ferdinand Habsburg because he was really on it at one point until he made the mistake right here at this corner and went straight on. This time he gets round, but I'm very afraid the red flag is out, therefore he will not get a lap, and he's slowed right down, as you can see, and he'll have to put up with 15th place after qualifying 1, but Habsburg will have the bit between his teeth for sure in qualifying 2. But interestingly enough, out of all that, look who's top. Pedro Piquet is at the top of the times, which is interesting. I don't know how that happened with
I have completely lost on the timing screen. Lando Norris.
Yes, he's disappeared.
So I think something has gone wrong. Our timing screen is showing Piquet. The graphic on the television screen, as you can see,
Norris
is showing Norris.
Yeah, no, it's Norris. Absolutely. Yeah. Sure of it. I think that's just an error, maybe a transponder error. But Lando Norris of Great Britain, the favourite here, and the current champion of...
That was special because the maintenance of concentration.
Yeah. Well, that's why Lando's so good.
And the necessity to do it instantly when they got back out on track. Because, as we said, anything can happen. It may be stopped again. It has been stopped again. So that was significant.
Yeah, and those, I mean, really, you know, you talk about the special guys, the special ones, and that's proof of that pudding, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Is that the really good guys put in the laps when they need to. And despite a delay of some 40 minutes plus, Lando Norris lost none of his concentration, went out, did the business, and is the fastest man at Macau for now. Still early days, just one practice day so far, another day to go tomorrow. What will conditions be like? Well, either way, Carlin have come here to defend their title, remember. They won this race last year, and they have charged Lando with doing exactly the same again. Here are the results then of qualifying 1. A 2:11.570 by Lando Norris of Great Britain in the Dallara Volkswagen. Then Pedro Piquet, Maximilian Gunter, Daniel Ticktum, also of Britain, in 4th position. Joel Eriksson, another one of the favourites, is 5th. Sekiguchi in 6th position. Yui Sekiguchi one of the favourites again. Callum Eilert, likewise, in 7th position. A really great result from Sacha Fenestras, who is his first season here, or first debut here at Macau. Sete Camara is in 9th position, despite that massive crash. Guang Yu Zhao is in 10th. Yamashita is 11th. Ralph Aaron making his debut, 12th. Mick Schumacher, an impressive 13th position. Well done to him, the German doing the business. Makino of Japan, 14th. Habsburg in the end, after that aborted lap, could have been further up the board, but he'll have to settle for 15th place. And likewise, Jahan Daruvala, his teammate, also had an incident in the last session. He will be 16th on the grid provisionally, because of course there's another qualifying session to go, and we'll be keeping up to date with all the qualifying times on MST and MacauGrandPrix.com on the bottom of your screen there, if you want to look further down and closer at the times. Disappointment then for Di Francesco Devlin in 19th position, and Alex Below also involved in one of the incidents earlier in the day, and he is right at the back. So that's how it stands. My thanks to Alan Hyde. We'll be back with more from Macau. But coming up next, it's the all-exciting and all-important qualifying session for the motorcycle, the 51st running of the Motorcycle Grand Prix with Richard Nichols.